In this demo, we're going to use Active Directory with password to authenticate an Azure SQL database. Now, in order to do this, we're going to log into the Azure portal. Then from the left-hand side, we're going to choose Azure Active Directory. Your existing users will be shown here. You can see I've got 2 in my subscription. I'm going to click on New User. And I'm going to call this person Alexander. And I'm going to say the username is going to be alexander@gethinellisgooglemail.com. It likes that. So I'm going to give them the first name. I'm going to call it Alex. And last name, alias, job title, my boy, department, my house. And then I can click to show the password there, Jacka304. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to click OK there. I'm going to leave everything else the same. Okay, and I'm going to click on Create. And we can see that Alexander appears. Now, let me just paste my password in here. And I just want to get a copy of that as well. And I'm going to sign out of the portal at this stage so I can log back in with my new account. So let me just refresh my screen here, use another account. I'm going to put my Alexander account in here with his password, sign in. It's going to prompt me to change the password, which I'm going to do. Click on sign in. Now, with my user created, the next thing I'm going to want to do is make the user an Azure SQL Server Active Directory admin. Now, to do that, I need to sign out again, and I'll sign back in with my Gethin Ellis account. Then I need to find the Toy Store SQL Server, open him up, get rid of those. And we can see there the Active Directory admin is not configured. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say set admin, and I'm going to choose my Alexander account. I'm going to click save, and when that is done, we can return to Management Studio. Now my account has got DB owner access across the estate. I'm going to connect to our Toy Store SQL Server, and then under Authentication here, I'm going to choose Active Directory with password. Then I'm going to pop in my username in the username box, and I'm going to put my password in here. Click on Connect, and it's gone in, and Alexander now has permission against all the databases and my Azure SQL database server. And you can see there it's using our Windows account as well. Azure SQL database will always have 2 different administrators if Azure AD Authentication is used. The original SQL Server administrator, SQL Authentication, and the Azure AD admin. The Azure AD administrator login can be a user or a group. All users in the Azure AD admin group will have admin access to Azure SQL Server, as is depicted on the diagram here. The Azure administrator can either be a single user or a group. A user and a group administrator can't coexist. Now, you must consider the following factors for Azure SQL database authentication. Create a dedicated Azure AD group as the Azure SQL Server administrator instead of creating individual user administrators. You can configure either Azure AD group or a user as an Azure SQL Server admin. Bulk copy tool, bcp.exe, can't connect to an Azure SQL database using Azure Active Directory Authentication, as it uses an old ODBC driver. SQL Command or SQL CMD version 13.1 and above supports Azure Active Directory Authentication. And to use Azure AD Authentication with SQL Server Management Studio, you need to have .NET Framework 4.6 or above installed on your system. Authorization and Azure authorization refers to object level permission a user has within a SQL database. For example, a user may have access to read a set of tables and read-write on another set of tables. The admin accounts, SQL Authentication and Azure AD account have DB owner access to all the databases and are allowed to do anything within the database. Server level admin roles. There are 2 additional server level administrative roles: database creators and login managers. Let's start by looking at database creators. Members of the database creators role, as the name suggests, are allowed to create new SQL database. And in this next demo, we will look at how we can create a new user with the database creator role. In this next demo, we will create a new login that is a member of the database creators or the DB managers role, and see how they can create new databases on our Azure SQL database. So I'm going to log in to Management Studio, connect to my Toy Store SQL database using my SQL admin account, and then I'm going to create a new login in master using the create login. I'm going to call it John with this very strong password here. If I execute that, it's being created, and then in master again, I'm going to create a user for this login John. I'm going to click on execute, command completed, and then I'm going to add John as a member of the DB manager role. Okay, so if we look at security in master, look at roles, database roles, there's the DB manager, okay, and I'm going to add John to it. Click on execute. When I have done that, I'm going to now open a new connection. I'm going to log in as John. I'm going to specify, before I do that, I'm just going to take my password here and copy it. Database engine, John, pop in my very strong password and click on connect. And then when I've connected as John, I'm going to open up a new query window, and you can see there at the bottom I am connected as John. Create database, John's DB, execute, and that'll go away and create a new database for me on my Azure SQL server. And when the command's committed successfully, John's DB will be present on our server.